Welcome, everybody, to, I think this is the final session of the day, right? After this is the closing session, and then we're done. Boy, this week flew by. I hope it's been a good summit for all of you, especially if you're a first-timer. Welcome to the ARIS Summit. I'm Jory Weintraub. I am part of the ARIS leadership team and also a faculty member at Duke University, where I run an Office of Broader Impact Support. Today's panel, I guess, is going to be about a program that we've recently introduced at ARIS. We'll be telling you more about that, and you'll be hearing from some of the people that are involved. So I guess we'll just go ahead and jump right in. The name of the program is the Program to Enhance Organizational Research Impact Capacity, which is kind of a mouthful. So we abbreviate that as ORIC, the ORIC program, which isn't particularly interesting or creative, but at least it's shorter than saying the whole name. At one point when we were coming up with this program, I came up with this acronym, and it was pie crust. And for the life of me, I can't remember what that stood for. I don't know, in a sleep-induced haze or something, and I had this insight for this great acronym that was pie crust. But then later, when I had my wits about me, I tried to remember what all the letters stood for, and I couldn't figure it out. So we've since abandoned pie crust, and now we go with ORIC as the name of the program. So the plan for today is that I'm going to tell you a little bit, just give you a quick overview of the program, tell you what it is and how it works. Then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Ellen Altermott, who is our evaluator for the program, and she's going to go through some of the data that she's collected from the pilot study to tell you how the pilot study of this program worked out. And then we're going to give you a chance to hear briefly from 3 of the people who participated in the pilot study. And hopefully there will be plenty of time at the end for discussion and Q&A. So the 3 people who participated in the pilot are listed there: Nancy Holmes, Rod Williams, and Nathan Meyer, and we thank them for being here. I want to thank a bunch of other people, though, who aren't going to be speaking today, but have been integral in setting up and running ORIC over the last year. So Megan Heitman and Janice McDonnell are part of the ARIS training team along with me. We're the 3 people that make up the ARIS training team. I want to thank all of the pilot study participants. You're going to hear from 3 of them today, but I want to acknowledge all of them. And I'm not listing them by name here, but I will show you briefly a slide that lists all of them by name. And also, if you attended the award ceremony last night, you met them all or heard their names then. And Travis Tangent, who helped us with one component of this and is here at the summit, and not sure if he's here in the session, but was instrumental in that. Of course, Susan Reno, who is our fearless leader at ARIS. Mary Beth Bone, who is in this session right now. Hi, Mary Beth, and is the one that keeps us all moving in the right direction and keeps all the trains running on time, along with Jean Bruns. And then Ellen Iverson, who is Ellen Altermott's colleague in evaluation of this program. So I want to acknowledge all of them for playing an instrumental role in ORIC over the last year. All right, so what is ORIC? As many of you, probably most of you know, one of the key pillars of ARIS since the beginning has been our training efforts. And even before ARIS, when we were known as NABI, training was always a central component of what we did. Most of the training, and as I mentioned, I'm on the training team at ARIS along with Janice and Megan. And most of our training historically has involved institutional visits. So we would travel to an institution, we'd spend a half a day or a day there, sometimes even more than that, and do a workshop, sort of a hands-on workshop with people who were largely faculty at those institutions. Often there would be some research impact professionals. Sometimes people would open up the workshops to postdocs and grad students as well. A number of people who are actually in this session right now have been involved in those workshops in the past at their institutions. And we like to think that those were actually really impactful, effective sessions, and that the people who were in the room really learned a lot about broader impacts. But one thing that we were very aware of is that for the people who were at that institution but not in the room on that day, they probably didn't benefit all that much from our efforts because obviously they weren't there to hear what we had to say. You know, and at the end of the day, we'd go back to our respective homes, and that would sort of be it. And so when we made the transition from NABI to ARIS, the training team thought a lot about how we could take our training efforts to the next level. We obviously wanted to continue doing these institutional visits, but we also wanted to be able to, you know, take the next step and do more than just these sort of one-off visits that only really benefited the people who were in the room on that day that we visited. And so we decided that in addition to continuing the institutional visits, we would introduce a program where we would identify a cohort of institutions and work with those institutions over the course of a year to train and mentor them so that they would enhance their own internal capacity to provide RI support, research impact support. And so really this is sort of that, you know, you give a person a fish, they eat for a day, you teach them to fish, they eat for a lifetime. It's sort of that model, right? When we were going and visiting an institution for a day, they were getting the benefit of our experience with broader impacts and research impacts. But we really wanted to empower people to be able to provide their own support and their own workshops and their own consultations. And that's how the idea of ORIC was born. By the way, I wanted a gender neutral version of this, and I had to make my own slide because every slide out there, every meme said, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. And I was trying to be more inclusive, so I had to make my own slide. And I managed to find a single image out there on all of the internets, in all of the tubes of the interwebs, that showed a woman fishing and not a man. So I hope you all appreciate my effort at gender inclusivity there. All right, so quick overview. What are the key components of ORIC? What makes up the ORIC program? Well, as I said, the objective is to support institutions and organizations as they build or enhance their own internal capacity to do research impact support. Now, you'll notice that we call this ORIC, Organizational Research Impact Capacity. So far, everyone that's participated has been, all the participants have been academic institutions. They've all been universities. But we really wanted to think more broadly than that. So in addition to academic institutions, excuse me, we wanted to be open to other organizations that might want to be able to do more with supporting research impact. So that could include professional societies and professional organizations. It could include research institutes, hospitals, you know, any sort of even museums and science centers. So we really wanted to be inclusive of any organization that wanted to enhance their research impact. As I said, it's a one-year program. It's cohort-based, and for reasons that were probably fairly arbitrary, we decided that we'd have each cohort consist of 5 institutions, but it seemed to work well with the pilot, so that's what we're sticking with. The goal of the program broadly is to provide training, mentoring, resources, and community building for the participants, so that they would feel empowered to do to be more effective at providing RI support within their institution. So we'll talk more about what the training, mentoring, resources, et cetera, are comprised of, but that's kind of broadly what we wanted to do with that. The program is built around a series of what we call RI or research impact milestones. And I'll just show you a little bit more about that in a few minutes so you have a sense of what the milestones are. But over the course of the year, we have participants working towards accomplishing or achieving these milestones. And then one of the key components that we think was really integral to this was that each participating institution or organization in the cohort had to apply to be part of this as what we call an RI team. And what I mean by that is there's the RI professional. That's the person who's sort of the boots on the ground person, the one who's going to be doing the consultations and running the workshops and, you know, doing a lot of that. But we realized that in order for them to be successful at really institutionalizing RI efforts within their institutional organization, they were going to have to have support from someone at an administrative level, someone who could be their advocate and their champion and really have that voice at the upper levels of administration to be a champion for enhancing RI support and infrastructure. So we require every applicant to apply as part of an RI team. You have to have both the RI professional and the administrative partner named in your application in order for it to be considered for application for the cohort. And then the ultimate goal of all of this is to increase the number of institutions and organizations across the country that are actively and effectively supporting research impact efforts. And this could be through creating new positions at the institution that, full-time or part-time positions to focus on RI support. It could be through creation of an RI office, or simply just by raising the visibility of RI work and support and infrastructure within that institution. If you have any questions, by the way, there will be hopefully plenty of time for questions at the end of the session, but also feel free to put them in chat. And I'm going to encourage my ORIC colleagues to feel free to answer any questions if they see them in the chat. All right, so how do the participating institutions benefit, or at least how do we hope that they benefit? Well, they benefit in a number of ways. So one is through establishment or enhancement of the infrastructure necessary to provide research impact support. So by helping each institution build up their own internal infrastructure. By providing the RI professional or professionals with training and professional development from the ARIS training team. So we provide training that empowers the participants, the RI professionals, to essentially do similar work within their institution. Over the course of a year, hopefully, we help them build up those skills so that they're ready to become the go-to RI professional at their institution. We also, over the course of that year, we make accessible to them all of the ARIS training materials that we, the ARIS training team, have built up over the years. And as we're developing new materials and resources, we make those available to people who participate in ORIC as well. And then, we're just sort of wrapping up the pilot study now and bringing on the new cohort. But the way we view this is the involvement and the support from ARIS to these institutions doesn't end at the end of that year. So all of those institutions are now sort of part of the ARIS family and part of our efforts to improve and enhance RI work throughout the country. And so they're part of our community now, and any ways that we can continue to support them beyond the 1 year period of time that they're involved with the program, we're committed to doing that. We are working now on a certification program to certify people as RI professionals. And hopefully at next year's summit, you'll be able to hear more about how that program is coming along. But in the meantime, any participating institution or organization that completes the year of ORIC receives sort of an institutional certification, a certificate saying they've completed this year of participation in this program. And once we've rolled out the individual certification program, participants in that program, in the ORIC program, will receive that certification as well. And then a really important component of this, and I think it proved to be more powerful and more important than we even anticipated it might be, is that the members of the cohort really became a community of practice and really built up a community within that cohort of supporting each other and helping each other advance their individual and their collective research impact goals. And as I said, you're going to hear from some of the people who participated in the pilot study in a few minutes, and hopefully they can speak more to how the community, how they felt the community within the pilot cohort really benefited them. And then again, the goal of all of this is to empower each of these institutions to provide better RI training and support, build up their own internal infrastructure, and ultimately, hopefully, do a better job of writing competitive NSF grants and bringing more money into the institution and doing more and better RI work, public engagement, and in their research. All right, quick acknowledgement of the pilot study institutions. Several of those folks are in this session right now. We pulled together this pilot study, and as I mentioned in my comments last night during the award ceremony, we really viewed the pilot participants as part of our team. It was a group effort. We really depended on them for feedback and input, and their feedback and input was crucial and was instrumental in helping us determine what worked and what could be improved. And I won't take the time now to call them all out individually by name, but you can see everyone listed here and the institutions that were involved. So again, I just want to acknowledge them and thank them so much for all of their enthusiastic participation and all of the feedback and input they gave us, which helped us build up our program over the course of a year so that we were ready to roll it out as an official program. Really quickly, I just want to mention the milestones, the sort of activities that we work on over the course of the year. So it starts out with a 3-month Train the Trainer series. This was a series of weekly workshops in which we, essentially trained the trainers. We worked with the RI professionals to help them feel more comfortable with the fundamentals of broader impacts and research impacts so that they could then become experts within their community and provide that training and support within their institution. So the 3-month training, as well as follow-up training sessions and discussions. We asked every institution right at the beginning to develop what we call a research impact landscape analysis. And I think Ellen is going to talk more about what that consisted of, so I won't go into details. But basically, we asked them to sort of get the lay of the land right at the beginning of their involvement in the program and say, what does RI support and what does the RI landscape look like at my institution at this time zero, this beginning point? And then we've just recently asked them, as they're wrapping up their year, to update that and give us sort of the end point now, so we can measure and assess how the landscape has changed over the course of a year. We helped them and provided resources for them to develop a searchable database of potential research impact partners so that people at their institutions who are looking for research impact, broader impacts partners would know where to go and would have access to this sort of collection of resources. You'll probably hear more about that, I think, from the pilot study people as they're talking to you in a few minutes. We asked them all to develop some sort of a web presence or website for their institution to provide information to the people at their institution on how they could come to that center or that office or to that individual and get research impact support. So that was an important piece of this, was just making the folks at their institution aware of all of the resources that they were providing. We asked them to develop a research impact support evaluation plan. And so essentially this is a plan on how they will evaluate their own efficacy at providing RI support within their institution. And so that's going to be a key metric for them moving forward as they attempt to really monitor how well they're doing at providing RI support. We ask and expect them to deliver institutional research impact, broader impacts, workshops, and training. So, the train the trainer sessions at the beginning are to give them the skills and the resources and the confidence that they can then start delivering their own RI training workshops at their institutions. And all the institutions that we worked with in the pilot have been doing that, and those have been going really well. So, that's an important component of this. And then a few more things. We ask them to start conducting individual RI consultations with people who are writing proposals at their institutions and want that sort of support and want the consultation to help them feel more comfortable writing a compelling, persuasive, broader impact statement within their proposal. We have regular meetings over the course of the year, and those are both within the RI team, so the RI professional and the admin partner within an individual institution are expected to meet on a regular basis. But then we also have meetings throughout the year where we meet as larger groups to sort of share experiences and insights and perspectives and benefit from each other's experiences in working on this project. And then finally, we're just wrapping up the pilot now. but we are going to ask all of our cohorts to serve as mentors for future cohorts and become part of an even larger community of practice to share their insight and their expertise. And so these are some of the milestones that we work on over the course of a year. So this gives you a better sense of, what are the things that we're asking people, participants in the ORIC program, to do. Finally, I just want to acknowledge that we have recently announced the incoming cohort, who are all listed here, are going to be starting, and sort of the kickoff to this is having them be part of this summit, and several of them I see are part of this session right now. And as I said in the award ceremony last night, as soon as we're done with the summit, it's going to be time for them to roll up their sleeves and get to work, because the year of fun and hijinks will begin with our Train the Trainer sessions very shortly. So hopefully that gives you a better sense of, let me just unshare, that gives you a better sense of how we've laid out the program, what our thinking was, why we were motivated to put this program together in the first place, and what our goals and objectives are for that. With that, I want to hand it off to Ellen, who, as I said, is one of the evaluators for ARIS, and has been doing great work evaluating us and giving us guidance on how this pilot project has been going and what sorts of changes we can make to move forward with that. So Ellen, please take it away.
Excellent. So I'm Ellen Altermat. I work at the Science Education Resource Center, or CERC, at Carleton College, which is in Minnesota. And my colleague Ellen Iverson and I have been involved in evaluating the ARIS program in general, and this ORIC program in particular. And what I thought I'd do today, if I can get this to work, is to talk a little bit about some of the evaluation tools we've used as part of the evaluation program, which is larger than just these 3 tools, but this gives you a sense of what we've been up to. And then share any findings that we have at this point, keeping in mind that the data are still coming in, and we'll have more to say this time next year. As Jory mentioned, one of the evaluation tools we've used is a landscape analysis report, which we ask administrative partners and RI professionals to construct jointly, both before or at the beginning of the program, and then again afterwards. And those post landscape analysis reports are just now coming in. But I can talk a little bit about what we've learned from the pre-reports, sort of common themes. We've also asked both RI professionals and administrative partners to independently complete what we're currently calling the Research Impacts Institutional Assessment Survey. And we're using a retrospective of pre-post design. So now that the program is over, we want you to give us a snapshot of the sort of health of your institution with regard to research impacts work now, and then sort of looking back to August 2020 or so. And the goal of this was to sort of supplement the landscape analysis reports with a tool that is more quantitative, that we can use to compare across time and across institutions, and that hopefully could become part of each institution's evaluation plan, and that could be used in institutions across the country. So this is definitely a work in progress, and we'll be interested in getting feedback from our partners right now in developing this survey further. And then the last tool that I want to talk a bit about, in part because we have data with regard to this survey, is what we're calling the Research Impact Self-Efficacy Survey. And this is completed only by the research impact professionals, and we had them complete it before the program began or shortly after it began. And then again, after the Train the Trainer series, and then we're asking them to complete it again after the summit. So this is part of the summit, is part of their experience. And so we'll ask them, you can all expect an email from me tomorrow morning to begin to complete those reports. I see questions coming in. Okay. So let me just talk briefly about each of these in turn. So for the landscape analysis report, what we asked each team to do is to document the resources that were currently available on their campuses with regard to research impacts work, including consultation services, websites, professional development opportunities for faculty and staff, databases of both existing and potential research partners, and then evaluation and assessment resources. And I think this was important for us, right, to get a sense of at baseline, where are we at? But also we learned important for the participants themselves to be able to document and really think about where they were currently. And then we also asked them to provide a narrative evaluation of essentially a SWOT analysis. So what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats to doing really high quality research impacts work and disseminating what is learned from that work to the wider campus community and then the community outside of the institution. There's a lot I could probably say about what we've learned from these reports, but in the interest of time, I just tried to highlight a couple of themes that came through in most of the reports, and probably none of this will come as a surprise to anyone, but it's sort of nice to know that all of the people we're working with are struggling with the same sorts of issues and working to solve those problems. And doing that together, I think, is a really huge strength of this program. So one of the things that we've learned is that most of the institutions reported that there's a need to improve communications efforts to highlight the research impacts activities that are happening on campus. And part of that is just having common language, right? We're all going to talk about research impacts so that people know what that means. And so through websites and blog posts and newsletters, that work is beginning to happen. We learned that research impact support is often limited to the planning stages, the proposal development stages, and that there may be less support at some institutions at the implementation and evaluation stages in particular, which is not surprising given that we also learned that there are limited evaluation resources. And even when those resources exist, they tend to be available at the level of a unit or a college, but not necessarily institution-wide. So there are gaps that need to be addressed there. Similarly, there's a need to improve mechanisms for documenting the research impact efforts that are currently underway and to begin to aggregate that data across units or colleges within an institution and begin to come up with a way of evaluating that work that's being done in a way that is accessible to people across the institution and then people outside of the institution as well. And then this will come as no surprise. There is a lack of clear incentives or reward structures for engaging in RI work, although that is beginning to change as well. And so there are efforts underway to make sure that happens. So that's sort of a snapshot of the sorts of things that we learned from the pre-surveys. And again, the post-surveys or the post-reports are currently coming in. And already we're beginning to see, and through conversations, we already know that there's been quite a bit of movement over the relatively short period of time in a lot of these areas. As I mentioned, we also wanted to begin to develop some sort of quick self-assessment instrument that would allow us to quantify some of those data in a way that would allow us to look quantitatively at change over time and across institutions. And perhaps develop a tool that could be used even among institutions that are not part of the ORIC program. So at the moment, this is a 13-item survey, and you're going to see that from the sample items that I'm presenting here, that a lot of the things that we learned from the landscape analyses and from just, tapping into the conversations that were had over the course of the year, that we're trying to capture some of those issues. So we asked RI professionals and administrative partners to independently complete the survey, and the comparison between the two, I think, will also be informative to see the degree to which they match or don't, and whether that varies across institutions. But items would include, and again, this is a 5-point scale, strongly disagree to strongly agree, researchers at my institution value research impacts efforts, or there's a clear strategy for increasing the visibility of research impacts efforts at my institution, or there's an effective system for tracking research impacts efforts, and so on. 13 items is not necessarily enough to capture all of the things that we hope institutions might be able to do, but we tried to get a short instrument that sort of captured, again, what we were hearing and what other groups are trying to assess as well. So I spent a good amount of time looking at what Research Impact Canada is doing in terms of assessing these sorts of outcomes. Those data are still coming in, and I was tempted to give everyone a sneak peek, but I don't want to bias the responses that are still forthcoming. And so I'm going to hold off. But my guess is that as we hear from Nancy and Rod, that you may get a sense of what kinds of responses we might get from this survey. The last tool that I want to talk about is the Research Impacts Self-Efficacy Survey. And again, this is a survey that is administered to the RI professionals in the program at 3 different time points. Again, a short survey that doesn't capture all of the competencies that RI professionals should probably have, but tries to tap into some of the most important ones as identified by the ARIS leadership team. And so I'm not going to read through all of these items, but to give you a sense, I'm confident in my ability to identify key individuals and programs at my institution, and I can't read my own screen, that can contribute to a sustainable research impacts infrastructure, or I'm confident in my ability to assist people at my institution in developing an evaluation plan for their research impacts work. And this is the one survey on which we do have good data already, and we'll be, again, getting the last round here in the next couple of weeks. But what I can say thus far is that we, if it stays a 10-item survey, have an internally reliable survey, which is always nice. We saw a range in responses. So I should have mentioned that research impacts professionals indicated their level of agreement with each of those items on a scale that ranged from strongly disagree to strongly agree, so 1 to 5. And you can see that there's quite a range at baseline, in part because some people have been doing this work for many, many years, and some are really brand new to their positions. So that wasn't surprising to us at all. But that range shrinks over time. Just at the end of the trainer sessions, and the mean scores across the 10 items also improve almost a full point, which is pretty substantial over a 2-month time period. And that was a statistically significant gain. And I thought I'd end, you shouldn't try to read all of the words on the left side of the screen there, but you can look at the length of the bars. And so this is all 10 items, the mean scores at baseline and post-survey, the first post-survey. And you can see that there are gains, and those are statistically significant gains from baseline to post-survey on all 10 items, with the exception of the item that reads, I understand the rationale for emphasizing research impacts on society. And the reason we didn't see gains in that area is because we hit ceiling at baseline, which is why these individuals in organizations decided to embark on the ORIC program. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have now, or at the end of the session after we hear from Nancy and
Ellen, thank you for that. And there was one question in chat, which I sort of punted, which was, because I'm not sure actually of the answer to this, but Laura Ball asked if we are able to make these instruments available, if we're able to share them with people, or if we will be in the future. And I'm just not really sure about that.
So my initial thought is I would love that, insofar as we really sort of across the space of research need more common metrics, and to the degree that we can begin to work together as a community to come up with those common metrics, I think it will strengthen things considerably. And so, yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I would be more than happy to share the metrics, to share the surveys, and to work together to try to figure out where there may be gaps in how we're thinking about how to assess these things.
Great. So what we wanted to do now was to give you a chance to hear from some of the people that participated in the pilot study. And again, just to remind you, each institution that participates, it consists of what we call an RI team. And that RI team consists of the RI professional, the person who's doing the consultations and the trainings and all of that, and then the administrative partner. And so we're going to start by letting you hear from a couple of the RI professionals. And then last but not least, we'll let you hear from one of the admin partners. So I'm going to invite Nancy Holmes, who is the RI professional at the University of Idaho, to take a few minutes to sort of share her thoughts and perspective after participating over the past year on the pilot study. And just for the record, I did reiterate to all of the pilot participants that we want them to be fully honest here. So they can say good things, and that's wonderful, but they can also say cruel, mean, hurtful things if they want to. not that, but we wanted them all to be, honest about what worked and what didn't work. So so feel free to ask them, and we want them all to be really open about what worked and what could have been done differently, because we're always trying to learn and improve. So Nancy, would you please take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Jory. I'm going to start by saying it was a real privilege to be part of the ORIC pilot. And I want to thank ARIS and the ORIC team and my cohorts for a truly wonderful experience. So I'm Nancy Holmes. I'm a proposal development specialist and now also a research impact professional at the University of Idaho. And I'm in the Office of Research and Faculty Development. It's a position I've had for about 4 years. U of I does not have an outreach and engagement office really of any kind. It's there in various pieces, but so the kind of role of broader impacts falls into our office. When I attended my first ARIS summit, it was 2019 in Tucson, I was pretty new to the world of research development and very new to the concept of broader impacts. So I was one of those newbies. So I never would have guessed that I'd be here 3 years later talking about this program as an RI professional. And during that summit, I attended Jory's BI 101 workshop, and I thought I wanted to bring this to my campus. We're very fortunate to be able to do that through partnering with our EPSCoR office. We did not have the financial means to do that on our own, but with some generosity and flexibility on ARIS's part, we were able to bring Jory to our campus for a half-day BI 101 workshop. It was very well received. I was happily surprised how many faculty came from all disciplines. And so I thought, well, how can we continue doing this, doing these workshops without, the capacity to do so? And so, as if an answer to our wishes, we were invited to participate in the ORIC pilot, and that's really changed everything. The rewards of participating in it, in addition to being gifted with this awesome hat, we now have the capacity, the 3 C's, the capacity, the competence, and most importantly for me, the confidence to offer the BI 101 workshops. We've done 2 so far. And we are planning some future workshops on not only BI 101, but some more specialized topics, such as evaluation and forming partnerships, things, again, that I learned through the pilot. We have a BI resource center. Right now it's in the form of a web page, but it's dedicated to BI resources that has received very happily accolades from across our campus. And this is helping also raise the awareness of broader impacts on our campus. Our partner database is complete and growing. I'm constantly getting new ideas. This summit gave me some new ideas for some other partners to add to the database. It's yet to be embedded as a searchable database, but we're getting there. There's some IT issues that I'm still working with. our ITS partners on campus. But the list is there, and we have identified, like I said, over 50 partners and growing. We're offering one-on-one BI consultations. I think that's what I'm most excited about. And we did that by adding it to our suite of faculty development and proposal development services that we already offer. So we've added another level to that, the one-on-one consultations. And we're widely advertising as we add these resources to our office. We're advertising it, and that really is helping to raise awareness across the campus about BI. So I'd say the highlights of participating in ORIC, for me and my partner, my admin partner is Carly Cummings, director of our unit. By being asked to do the landscape analysis, the assessment of our current resources, and what we're lacking, being pushed to do that was important and needed. And then we were guided through the process of how to fill those gaps through the ORIC training. I was surprised how many resources we sort of already had, but that might have been underdeveloped. So that was great to say, oh, we have some of this, but it doesn't quite look right yet. As now we're getting there. I thought it was very effective, and I say essential to approach this as a team effort, so that every research impact professional trainee is paired with their admin partner. So the joint activities that we were supposed to do together, such as the landscape analysis, helped us build an understanding of what we're doing and how we're doing it together. So that was, I think, really smart. I also really enjoyed the diversity of the individuals in my cohort, the variety of positions that they held in their institutions. And we all looked a little bit different in terms of where we were coming from institutionally. And I've learned a lot from them. We learned from each other. And I think it continues to be a supportive group. And finally, working with the ARIS team, Jory and Megan, Janice, Mary Beth, it was neat for me to gain sort of an insider's view of this amazing organization. I feel much more part of it, and very valuable. And finally, just the practical and hands-on approach that is used in ORIC. It's a great way to learn, and the mentorship and the openness of all our discussions was both fun and instructive. So the next step, what's next for us and how to get there is what we're going to focus on. Certainly being able to track RI on our campus, evaluate. Those are things that I think we still need to figure out and grapple with. But I've been inspired by the ARIS Summit, and especially by some of the fellows products to expand the resource that we have and add to our resource list. Yeah, so it's been great to be here, and truly appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer questions anytime or contact me.
Great, thanks so much, Nancy. If you're willing, maybe you could put your email in chat and people could reach out to you that way. By the way, if you haven't been to Moscow, Idaho before, it's a beautiful little town and a really beautiful part of the state. I've been there a few times now. I always enjoy visiting, but I have to say that a partner database that contains 50 different groups in it is really impressive, because I think that's about half the population of Moscow, Idaho. So, it is a teeny town, and to have potentially 50 BI partners, that's fantastic that you were able to identify that many. So that's wonderful. Next, I'm going to ask Rod Williams from Purdue University. One thing I meant to mention earlier is that, our original sort of vision for what ORIC would look like was that there would be a single RI professional and a single admin partner that would make up the RI team. What we found, and you'll probably hear more of this from Rod in a moment, is that a lot of people felt that actually, building a team within the institution it was the key to success for them. And so we really reevaluated what we envisioned as making up an RI team. And as you might have noticed when I shared the names of the cohort one, the incoming cohort, almost every one of the institutions that we've brought on board for this new cohort has multiple RI professionals as opposed to just a single RI professional. We don't have a bias. We don't think one is better than the other, but we've definitely opened up our mind to being more receptive to a team of RI professionals, especially I think for the institutions that are sort of just getting their feet wet with this and have a lot of people that feel they need to be trained on how to do this type of work. So with that, Rod, I'll hand it off to you and ask you to just quickly introduce yourself and tell us your thoughts. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jory. That's actually a wonderful segue into sort of how I was going to introduce our approach and our involvement with the ARIS program. So my name is Rod Williams. I'm a professor and extension wildlife specialist in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources here at Purdue University. For the last 4 years, I've also had a joint appointment in the Office of Engagement, where I've served as a provost fellow, where we're trying to advance the scholarship of engagement here at Purdue. And then the last year working with Jory and his team and my cohort colleagues, trying to advance research impact at the institutional level. So, sort of playing off of what Jory just said, one of the things I really appreciated about the ARIS program is that, right up front, they outlined those 6 expectations that Jory showed in his PowerPoint. But what they didn't do is they didn't emphasize or de-emphasize any of those 6 expectations. And what that means is they gave us latitude as an institution to develop each of those expectations that made sense to the culture of our institutions, right? And so it differed a lot between Nebraska and Idaho and Purdue, what our faculty and staff wanted to emphasize or de-emphasize. And so we had a lot of latitude to do that. And likewise, we had some latitude on what our team looked like. And so Purdue took that latitude. I took as much latitude as I could possibly get in moving forward here at Purdue. And one of the things we did is we built a team. And so what we did is we built on the synergy that we already had developed here in the Office of Engagement. We were made a lot of inroads with regard to engagement, scholarship of engagement, evaluating impact within one of the land grant mission areas, engagement. And what this ARIS program, this ORIC program allowed us to do was serve as a catalyst to expand across mission areas. So Purdue did 2 things differently a little bit, as we had a tripartite mission area focus. And then secondly, we built a team. So there were 7 or 8 people on this team. We had our admin, which was Steve Abel, who is Associate Provost of Engagement here. I served as the RI professional. And then we had a team of researchers, both faculty, staff, representing all mission areas on this team and helping fulfill those expectations. So that was really great. We also were given some latitude. One of the things we did at Purdue was we created our own needs assessment at the university level. So we polled all faculty and staff at the institution to try to gain some insights. And we based that needs assessment off of those 6 expectations that Jory outlined in his PowerPoint, and really ask our university, within the realm of these 6 expectations, how do you want to expand and enhance your research impact individually? And so we took all that data, and that's what we used to inform what we really focused on and emphasized of those 6 expectations moving forward here at Purdue. So that's something that we did a little bit different. The other thing that sparked, and I think Nancy touched on this, is it really allowed us through that landscape survey to connect more broadly outside of the Office of Engagement. So we're now already starting to partner in a very substantial way with our EVPR, or Executive Vice President for Research, her and her office, with regard to creating grant proposals, other members of the Provost's office with evaluation. The other thing that we perhaps did a little bit differently at Purdue is when we launched this in the fall, we're going to launch this as a cohort model. So Jory mentioned one of the expectations were individual consultations, and I know Nancy mentioned she's been doing those as well. And that actually, in our needs assessment here at Purdue, came out as one of the lower things that faculty and staff wanted to utilize. Instead, they wanted to have professional development through cohort models, much like the cohort that Nancy and I are a part of, right? So cohort models are really popular here at Purdue. And so we've elected to create all of our professional development training as cohort models, where we have 15 fellows every fall semester, every spring semester. We have a selection of mentors across mission areas. They're going to serve as mentors to those fellows each spring and fall semester. So I think that's going to be really well received as well. And again, it's linking all different mission areas within our provost office as part of that training development as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, Jory, that you wanted me to touch on from the Purdue model that's a little bit different. I don't want to be too much overlapping with what Nancy said, but for us, obviously, it served as a really great catalyst to join mission areas, to bring in faculty and staff across our provost office in general.
Great, thank you, Rod. I want to make sure, I appreciate that, and I want to make sure we have time to hear from Nathan and then maybe get to a couple questions as well. So I want to quickly introduce Nathan Meyer, who is the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and was the admin partner. So you'll get that perspective now from Nathan. So please take it away, Nathan.
Thanks a lot, Jory. And thanks to Nancy and Rod for sharing a bit about their experiences. It was really great to hear from the two of them. And similar to Nancy, I just want to start by saying that I'm super grateful to the ARIS team for offering this incredible program, especially to Jory, to Janice, to Megan for all the support they've given the RI professionals the last several months, and to Susan and Mary Beth for herding the administrative lions who were also participating in the pilot this past year too. So from an administrative perspective, our participation at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and ORIC was beyond helpful. So I think it's also been for us serendipitous, instructive, and transformative. Joining in the pilot was serendipitous for us on our campus because it came almost immediately on the heels of a new strategic plan, one of the aims of which is to increase the societal impact of our research, scholarship, and creative activity on our campus. And so because of that plan, because of the invitation to join ORIC, I was able to advocate for and get permission to create our first ever research impact coordinator position on our campus. And so this role was established centrally in my office, the Office of Research and Economic Development. Like Idaho, we don't have an engagement office. That's quite a bit different than some of the other institutions participating in the pilot. And so this new position is held, you heard her mentioned, by Jocelyn Bosley. She participated in ORIC as our RI professional. And so, there was a lot going on this last year. Our office was really distracted by COVID testing and then vaccination deployment and things like this. So ORIC for me was a godsend because I didn't have to worry about Jocelyn's onboarding plan, like ORIC laid it out for her. So the program really gave us a jump start on launching her work, her position, because it gave her the level of training, resources, and mentorship that we really needed to enhance our internal capacity to support research impact work on our campus from the institutional level. Historically here, that work was really scattershot, very ad hoc, and extremely diffuse. And so I'll just say that when we marketed Jocelyn's new role on our campus, we pointed to our spot in the ORIC pilot, both as a point of pride, but also helped use it to further legitimate the work that she, was undertaking and is doing already. And so next I want to share that just beyond providing a roadmap for that work, for that position, ORIC was also very instructive to me as the admin partner. It was very helpful to meet regularly with the other administrative partner reps from the 4 other campuses. And so this was really, more than anything, I think an informal opportunity for us to open our playbooks and compare and share notes. You've already heard some of this today, but what I found clearly is that the institutional cultures, the organizational structures across the pilot institutions vary a lot, but it was always just great to be in the room, to have a seat at the table, and to be inspired by the variance in the institutional approaches, to learn from the other institutions' perspectives, to get affirmation in some cases of things we do pretty well on our campus, or to be reminded about something we're not doing that we should be considering. And so finally, I'll just say that ORIC really has been transformational for us. From where I sit, that transformation is most manifest in 2 ways that I'll share quickly. So for the first time, the research impact training that we hosted on our campus this spring was led by an internal expert rather than someone from either the NABI or the ARIS team, although Jory was there in the Zoom room and had Jocelyn's back if she needed it. The other thing I'll say is that, I mentioned that on our campus, a lot of this impact work had been very ad hoc, but our proposal development team always bared the brunt of this work during NSF career proposal season, where not only were they trying to help people learn how to write really compelling NSF career awards, but helping them develop, plans to integrate education and outreach and come up with really spiffy, broader impacts for their career proposals. 24 folks they're supporting annually now. This year, they were able to focus on the grantsmanship aspects, and Jocelyn was able to come alongside them and provide that intellectual partnership, that coaching, that strategy development for the integration piece of education and research and outreach. So to borrow from the inspirational language that the NSF director, Dr. Ponch, is using these days, thanks to ORIC, we were able to achieve this transformation at a speed and at a scale that would not have been otherwise possible. So I, like the others, I really strongly recommend the ORIC program to any institution looking to up its game. And if I can answer questions or shine some additional insights on things, feel free to contact me offline. Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan. And Nathan alluded to this. I didn't have time to mention it earlier, but in addition to having regular meetings with the RI professionals and the ARIS training team, Megan, Janice, and myself, in parallel to that, throughout the year, the admin partners, including Nathan, would meet regularly with Susan Reno, and Susan is a vice provost or vice chancellor or one of those. And so that was sort of a parallel ongoing set of conversations to really talk about how to institutionalize research impact efforts at that level. So I think that was a key to having both pieces of the RI team engaged fully throughout the year. So we have just a few minutes left. There was one question that Lisa asked in chat that I know we've gotten that question before. It's a good one. So maybe, and Rod, I think you may have already answered it in chat, but Lisa was asking, how much time does this take up for an RI professional? How much of your time over the course of a year? And Rod, you said it was about 0.25% of, or 25% of your time, but you had a team helping you with that. Nancy, do you have thoughts on that?
One of those answers, as much time as you want to give it. It's built into my position. I would say if I had to average, well, when I was preparing the BI workshops, a lot of time, but once those are done, maybe, 2 to 3 hours a week during the ORIC training. Hard to say, sorry.
Yeah, and Nathan, I don't know if you have a sense of what Jocelyn's time commitment was, but as you said, I mean, this was baked into part of her position description, so it was expected that she do this work, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You all sort of handed her, right, the model for what she's doing now. So for us, it was really, a great induction opportunity to a new role in the central office.
So just to qualify that too, Jory, so my time was bought out, so that's why I came up with 0.25. That's how much I was bought out. And we did that additional needs assessment, and then we just did a lot of extra things that were in and above. We went through all 3 mission areas, which is probably a little atypical than what Nancy or Jocelyn were focused on, which are more discovery based. So that's why my time was a little bit perhaps different. Again, we had some latitude to do that, so that's why mine's perhaps a little different.
Great. We're almost out of time, but does anybody else have a quick question? Feel free to just unmute. That would be quicker than typing it if anyone has a question. Okay, well, it's 2:15. Sorry,
Oh,
was there a question?
This is Lisa. I had a question again.
Oh, sure.
Now, what is the time frame for the next cycle? So did you say it was this summer? So
yeah, sorry, I wish I had, if I had more time, I would have mentioned all that as well. But the time frame we used for this new cohort, I think, is what we're going to stick with. And so in late fall, early winter, we'll put out a call for the next round of applications. I think, Courtney, I see you there. Amy Jo, was it March 1st? Was that the deadline this year? And then we had a whole panel of reviewers review all the applications. We turned those around, and by early April, I think, so it took us a few weeks, but by early April, I think we made our decisions. And the idea is that moving forward, each new cohort will sort of, their welcome to ARIS and to ORIC will be at the summit, which is always held end of April, beginning of May. And then they'll work through the initial summer over that summer on the intense training. And then fall and spring, we'll be working towards the other milestones, doing the workshops, the consultations, those sorts of things, with kind of a graduation ceremony at the next summit. So the new cohort will graduate at next year's summit. So that's the time frame that we're going with, Lisa. Great. Well, it's 3 o'clock straight up here on the East Coast, so I should probably let you all go. I want to just thank everyone who attended, and especially Nathan, Ellen, Rod, and Nancy for sharing their perspective on this. And if you have any questions, you can always look me up through the attendee page on the conference website and reach out to me that way. It's just jory@duke.edu, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about ORIC. But thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here, and enjoy the rest of the summit.